A historic farewell unfolded on Saturday in the Vatican City as tens of thousands of mourners gathered at St. Peter's Square for the funeral of Pope Francis, the first Latin American leader of the Catholic Church and a tireless advocate for the poor. The beloved pontiff passed away on Monday at the age of 88, bringing to an end a 12-year papacy that many viewed as a turning point towards a more inclusive and compassionate church. Crowds began gathering overnight, with some camping out to secure a place at the solemn ceremony. World leaders, including U.S. President Donald Trump and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, were among the dignitaries in attendance. Over the past 3 days, more than 250,000 people filed through St. Peter's Basilica to pay their final respects. Today's funeral is expected to draw as many as 200,000 mourners. With over 50 heads of states present, Italian and Vatican authorities launched a large-scale security operation to ensure the smooth running of the emotional farewell to a pope who left a profound and lasting legacy on the global stage. And for more on this, we're joined by our international correspondent, Afua Hagan, that has been doing a wonderful job covering the event, by the way, and she will be giving us a quick rundown of the day's events. Afua, thank you so much for joining us once again. Can you summarize the key moments from today's funeral ceremony?
A very solemn day here in Rome for the funeral of Pope Francis. Look, there were so many key moments for me personally. I think, walking down towards St. Peter's Basilica, towards St. Peter's Square, the amount of people, now the authorities here in Rome have estimated that perhaps 450,000 people turned out, 50,000 people in St. Peter's Square alone, to see Pope Francis laid to rest. I think seeing the world leaders and the dignitaries who were gathered there in alphabetical order, apart from the Prime Minister of Italy and the President of Argentina, to see them all gathered there in that square, to see the cardinals in the sea of red as well. During the service, you had a ripple of applause when you had the cardinal who was taking the service, Giovanni Battista Re, when he talked about, Pope Francis and his love for inclusivity and justice. There was some applause all around where we were at St. Peter's Square as people really agreed with that. That was a really key moment for me as well. And I just think seeing the breadth and the depth of the people who were there, you had children, families, lots of groups of kids, of scouts, people that had come from far and wide. We met people from Canada, from Britain, from Ghana, from Nigeria, lots of different people coming together to celebrate the man who they called Father. He really was a pope for the people.
Well, I see you've done a bit of description of the situation there, but then how do you think that the crowd from the different parts of the world who are present at this funeral are taking this in?
That's a good question. I think there was a lot of sadness. We saw people openly crying in the streets. I think that people really relished being part of an incredible part of history, because that's what this is. How many times in a lifetime will you see a pope being interred in this way, being buried in this way? And so people really were soaking up the atmosphere and really relishing being a part of history. And there was a lot of sadness, but also a lot of people remembering that this was an opportunity to celebrate the life of Pope Francis, someone who was a pope of first, the first pope from Argentina, the first pope from the global south, the first Jesuit pope, the first pope not to be raised in Italy. All these firsts were really important and really significant. So it really was a chance to celebrate those firsts as well.
So what about the world leaders in attendance? Any notable takeaways and what their presence might signal?
Yes, I mean, like you said, you had over 50 world leaders, members of royalty from royal families across Europe and the world there, seated in alphabetical order, like I said. I think notable taking away when we're talking about world leaders is that meeting that happened between President Trump of the United States and Volodymyr Zelensky of the Ukraine. We saw them seated together in the Vatican having a discussion, and then we saw them with Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, and Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. We had some pictures of them having a discussion. Zelensky said that the discussions that were had could be historic. Afterwards, President Trump criticizing Vladimir Putin, something that he hasn't really done lately. He's kind of been perhaps on Russia's side, so to speak, but I think that was absolutely notable that in this solemn occasion that diplomacy was done, and I think that's something that Pope Francis would have wanted. He was very vocal about his want for wars to end, and I think if sides could have a discussion in this way, they were brought together almost because of him, I think that's something he certainly would have been pleased about.
Afua, Hagan, thank you so much for sharing these updates with us. We appreciate that.